another day of the Creakers. Very exciting. I'm in school today. I hope you've all had a wonderful day. I'm in school with some fabulous kids sitting on the carpet listening now. So you're all joining in together. So it's wonderful. So let's get started. Chapter 25, The Creaker King. Lucy's stomach twisted in horror as she saw a flash of fluorescent green. She recognised it at once. It was her dad's jacket, and it was draped round the shoulders of the shoulders of the largest creaker she'd ever seen. He was the size of Guff, Grunt, Scratch and Sniff put together. A hideously rotten creature who kept himself hidden in the shadows of the tunnel. With the sun in her eyes from the world above, Lucy could just make out glimpses of the king's cracked lips, his beaky nose and his flaky, scaly head. His battered crab-like claw was as tough as bone as it grabbed Lucy's ankle. But worst of all was his smell. It was like fish guts and vomit. It made Lucy gag. Ugh. "Say farewell to your world, Kitterling," the king snapped in an awful creaky croak that scratched Lucy's eardrums. He pulled her from the open wormhole out of the sunlight and back into the dark shadows of the Wallab. "Get back from those, you disgusting bunch of twitnits," the king spat at his creakers, "or you'll all be dusted." Lucy saw the upside-down world turn upside down as he picked her up by the leg with one mighty claw. She was carried, swinging dizzily from side to side, back into the cavernous opening where the entrance to Creakerland had once stood. "Stay calm, Lucy," she told herself, trying desperately to ignore the leaping of her heart in her chest. "Stay calm." With a thud, Lucy was dumped in the middle of Main Street, which was thick, oozing mud now that the polished green paving had vanished. She rubbed her sore ankle where the king's claw had gripped her as he stood at the entrance to his grand castle of dustbins. With a wave of his powerful arms, he commanded the brightly lit tunnel that led to Whiffington to twist shut, sealing off the warm sunlight. "Let me go home!" Lucy shouted at the king, her voice echoing around the enormous cave. The Creaker King stood very still. Lucy saw his shoulders rise and fall as his rotten, reeking breath filled the air with stinking steam. He reminded Lucy of a fearsome dragon. There you go, there's the picture. And there's a picture for the people in class. He opened his fist, revealing long, black, pointy claws. Lucy gulped. The king twisted them round, and a huge, greasy throne of mud began to grow out of the floor, bubbling and oozing as it formed in the deepest, darkest shadows of the Creaker Castle. The king suddenly bent forward and creaked along on all fours, more like the creakers Lucy was used to seeing, although his creak was more creepy, more powerful, like that of a strong silverback gorilla. He crept into the shadows and sat on his mouldy throne of rot. If it wasn't for the luminous green jacket he'd stolen from Lucy, she wouldn't have been able to see him at all. "So, Kitterling, you've come to destroy us?" The king's voice cut through the darkness. "No," Lucy said honestly. "That's not why I came here at all." The king was silent for a moment as his 4 royal creakers, Grunt, Guff, Scratch and Sniff, crept beside his throne. "Those creakers of mine be telling me how you trickstered them, how you caught 'em in a sun trap, and now you brings the day down here with yous," the king said. "Yes, but So you see, it seems like that you are destroying us whether you want to or not." Lucy's heart sank in her chest. She'd never meant to destroy anything or hurt anyone. "I just wanted my mum back and to rescue the other mums and dads from the other children," she explained. "Lies!" the king roared. Lucy found herself trembling with fear. She wished she could run away, but something about the king made her feel frozen to the spot. "No Kitterling wants their grown-ups back. We takes them away. We lets the kids be free, be messy, be naughty," the king boomed. "In return, all we wants is your rotten waste." "Yes, but," Lucy gulped, "your rottenness, you see, it all got a bit out of hand." "Out of hand?" the king asked. "Yes, we realised that we needed the grown-ups. We missed them." "Missed them?" "Yes, when they were gone, it was fun for a little while, but then we got lonely and sad. We wanted our mums and dads back." Lucy paused for a moment. "My mum, she's all I've got in the world since my dad disappeared. I had to come and save her." The king was silent. Lucy could only see his large pointy claws dangling over the arms of his throne like spiders sitting on their webs waiting to attack. Suddenly, the lumpy ground of Main Street started rumbling and shaking. Lumps of decaying floor crumbled upwards, floating towards the cave ceiling. "Your creaker, Nez," Grunt said in a panic. "The break be coming through!" Lucy knew that Grunt was right. The mouldy ground beneath was getting warmer and warmer. As she looked down, a crack appeared by her feet. "You've got to hide!" Lucy yelled at the creakers. "Get into the shadows!" The king stood up, spreading out the long, filthy jacket. Grunt, Guff, Scratch and Sniff leapt behind it, taking cover in the shadow of their king. Then the crack split open, and an enormous shard of blinding white sunlight exploded into the cave, slicing through the shadows and falling directly on the king. With a roar, he shielded his face with his arms, protecting it from the hot rays. "No!" Lucy cried out, terrified they would all be turned to dust. But the king stood in the pool of light and slowly lowered his arm, allowing the warmth to touch his face. For the first time, Lucy saw what he looked like. She saw his eyes, which were a twinkling blue, his nose, which was a little bit big, just like hers, his mouth, which looked like it might break into a smile at any moment. A lump instantly caught in her throat. Tears formed in her eyes and her head spun with confusion. "Dad?" she gasped, before everything went black. Didn't see that one coming. There you go. My goodness. Chapter 26. The Weird Work of the Waleb. Lucy opened her eyes, her head swam dizzily, and her stomach was filled with an awful kind of emptiness. She was staring right into a pair of curious, beady black eyes which blinked at her and then looked up. "The Kidderling be alive, your rottenness!" announced Sniff. "The king!" Lucy's heart leapt as she remembered what had happened before she blacked out. She rolled slowly onto her side and sat up, wincing. "Dad?" she called out again, her voice wobbly with worry. The Creaker King stepped forward from his throne. Grunt, Guff and Scratch were still hiding in the shadows behind his back, in fear of another beam of light breaking through. "Why'd you be calling me that, Kidderling?" the king said suspiciously. Lucy nervously took a step forward towards him so he could see her better. Her knees trembled. There he was, as clear as crystal. It was her dad, all right. Just different, changed, creakified. Lucy studied this new face of his. His ears were long and pointy like a goblin's, and his skin had turned a dark, wrinkly green. His head was bald, although it was bald before, so that wasn't any different. But now it was covered in big, lumpy moles. His nose was pointy, with twisty, wiry hairs poking out, and in his ears she could see dirt globules of brown wax, like he hadn't washed in years. But beneath all that, all the rottenness, Lucy knew it was her dad. His eyes still twinkled like magic, and on his left cheek there was a deep dimple, giving him away. "Dad, what's happened to you?" Lucy whispered in shock and took another step towards him, reaching out with her shaking hands. But the king backed away into the shadows. "That's close enough! Is this another tricksy Kidderling?" he demanded fiercely. "No, Dad, it's me, Lucy." "Who?" Your daughter, don't you remember?" Lucy said, tears beginning to stream down her cheeks. "Dad, you have to try to remember. You're not a creaker. At least you haven't always been one. You're a grown-up with a wife and a kid. Me! Lucy, you're Lucy Pops, remember?" "Lucy Pops," the king repeated slowly, as though he remembered saying that word before. "Yes!" Lucy cried. "That's what you and Mum always call me." She saw the creakers shooting quick, nervous glances at each other. "The Kidderling be tricksing you, you rottenness!" Grunt hissed. "Best not listen to the tricksy thing," added Guff. "It's not a trick," said Lucy. "Dad, you disappeared months ago. You just vanished. Everyone thought you'd left us, but I knew you wouldn't do that. Now I know what really happened." The creakers all started fidgeting nervously. "You were snatched," Lucy's voice echoed around the cavernous room. "Me? Snatched?" the king scoffed. "Yes, Dad, by these 4 rotten things." Lucy pointed at Grunt, Guff, Scratch and Sniff. "They snatched you and brought you down here. Who better to be their king than you? The man who knows rubbish better than anyone." Lucy stared at her dad's new creaker face. You've been here so long, Dad, that this place has changed you, made you forget. It's turned you all backwards and different. But, Dad, I can see you're still in there. Suddenly another crack burst open in the floor and a second streak of light shot out into the cave. Lucy! Norman's voice soared up through the hole. Lucy stared down it. She could see into her world and Norman waiting for her at the other end. Dad, come back with me, please, Lucy pleaded. No, your rottenness, this all be tricks, Grunt said from his hiding place in the king's shadow. It's not a trick, Dad, yelled Lucy, searching her brain for a way to make her dad remember. She stared at him, standing there in his dirty green work jacket. Then she suddenly remembered. Dad, your coat pocket, she exclaimed. There's something in there. It's yours, remember? We're going to have to stop there for today, guys. Join me again tomorrow for another episode of The Creakers. Bye-bye.